really, I suppose we should start with maybe a general sort of thoughts on the season as a whole, and then we'll go into some more detail. I'll let you have the floor for this one.
With respect to the season as a whole, much better than seasons 1 and 2, partially because they spent a good deal of time kind of undoing the mess that were seasons 1 and 2. Except I felt that it set up a lot of things in this season and then didn't really deliver, or a lot of stuff happened that was kind of anticlimactic. Everything about Vadic was like, we spent, half the season building her up as this villain, as this mastermind to contend with, like Con-esque sort of, where there's this cat and mouse game and everything, and then she's dead. And now the real villain's revealed, and we've got to rush and defeat them in the remaining 3 episodes. Things like that kind of felt flat for me. But overall, a better season. Still not quite the same feel as TNG era Trek. There were no stories that actually made you think or made you question stuff. Decisions were made, and they always turned out to be the right decision. There was never any sort of ambiguity that's left to the viewer as to whether or not what they've done because they had to do it was the right thing. And there's so many examples in every Trek before the Abrams reboots where that happens. And it's kind of, there was a comment on one of your videos, your most recent video, reviewing the finale. And he said, listening to you and the other commenters makes me wonder why you watch Star Trek. Oh, it's to find nothing to do but complain and find fault with everything. Sit back, relax, turn off your brain, and enjoy. I know I and 90% of the others did.
I'll stop you there. I was going to bring this up as well, because I noticed that first thing this morning. So continue, please.
My argument is that Star Trek was never supposed to be a show that you turn your brain off and enjoy.
Yes.
That's kind of more of a Star Wars thing. There's the bad guy, there's the good guy. They use the Force, they blow up the planet-destroying weapon, and there's a big award ceremony at the end, and that's great for what it is. But Star Trek really was about pushing different philosophical ideas, challenging different philosophical ideas, making you think and see the process that lead to people going down specific paths. And the newer Trek doesn't really do that. It's just turn your brain off. We're going to blow some stuff up. We're going to have cool effects. And so that's kind of the complainy aspect of it. The effects are gorgeous. The shots in this season, some of these shots have just been absolutely beautiful, and stuff that could never have been done with earlier iterations of Trek just because the technology wasn't there. So why complain? Because we're being given a package that is that we have certain expectations of based on how it was in the past, and we're not getting what we kind of expected from the franchise. You think Star Trek, TNG era Star Trek, you're going forward with new Star Trek, you expect it to be more of the same. What are our current modern day challenges being shown to us through the guise of an alien that is having the problem that we're having today? And how do you address these problems? Is there a right answer? Is there a wrong answer? Is there just a decision that's made, and the question whether or not it's right or wrong is left up to the viewer? We're not given that. We're just, hey, there's the bad guy, we're the good guys, let's blow stuff up.
Yeah, and like I said, I was going to mention this anyway, because you took the words pretty much right out of my mouth. Star Trek was never switch brain off TV, and we're not finding ways to moan, complain, or hate this season. We're looking at it from as an as objective point of view as we can. And I said this going into the season. I said, look, if it's good, I'm going to say it's good. If it's bad, I'm going to say it's bad, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why. Star Trek had those wonderful stories that always left you wondering, okay, so my moral compass is a little askew here. How do I feel about this? Do I trust these? Do I think that these were the bad guys or those were the bad guys? Who's in the wrong? Who's in the right? Star Trek always asked those questions, but it always asked them of you. It never told you the answer. And for someone to come along and say, the individual, it doesn't matter. It's the question or the comment itself, the mentality. People say, "Oh, sit back and enjoy it. Why have you got to pick everything apart? Why can't you just enjoy it?" Well, that's what we go to see movies for. The blockbuster movies in the cinema. That's what we do. We go and watch these movies because we're expecting to be wowed by what we see. And we can switch our brain off and, put aside our, expectations and sort of think about what it is we're actually there for. When I sit down and watch The Next Generation, some of the great episodes of The Next Generation, I'm always wondering on the way out, what do I have done? Who's right? Who's wrong? You're absolutely right. It feels very much this season as a Star Trek show in visual style only.
Yeah, and in the interest of balance, we aren't necessarily looking through rose-tinted lenses at old Trek either, and being like, wow, it was all wonderful. There were poorly written episodes. There were poorly done episodes. Shades of Grey, TNG's Shades of Grey was terrible. Yeah, Voyager's Threshold is universally reviled by everyone. Like, so yes, you're going to have problems. And I guess in one way, as much as I loved the serialized storytelling of Deep Space Nine, the episodic nature of TNG, Enterprise, and Voyager, and of course the original series, allowed you to have bad episodes that could be isolated from the rest. When you have these like Discovery and Picard with their mystery box seasons, or series if you're across the pond, if they've made a bad decision, or if there's a poor writing choice made, they're stuck with it for all X number of episodes, and it's then hard to enjoy it as much because it's like, oh yeah, that bad decision they made in season or in episode 2, well, it's carried forward and it still doesn't make any sense in episode 7, and it's been this thread that they've been riding on the whole time, and it kind of takes you out of it. It's like the mycelial network in Discovery. Like, this sounds like 1930s science fiction, with very little knowledge but a lot of fantasy, and Star Trek was never really about the fantasy aspect. They tried to keep as much of it grounded in theoretical or near theoretical science. Like the warp drive isn't magic. It's based off different concepts that people smarter than me understand. And
yeah, but it never treated you like an idiot either.
True.
It never said, here's the science behind it. We know you're not going to understand this. It always tried to explain it. But New Trek, its science fiction is pseudo at best. It's a case of, the old, science is swear word cool.
Yes.
It's hip, it's in. It doesn't matter if you understand the laws of physics or not. But generally speaking, that aspect of what you were talking about in terms of being trapped by the writing. So Picard season 3, its biggest problem is season 1 and 2.
Yes.
I kind of get the feeling that if Star Trek Picard season 3 had been season 1, they wouldn't have had so many limitations. But that would beg the question, what kind of quality stories can they tell? Now, I don't think Star Trek in general works as serialized format. It works episodic. It always
Yes.
has worked best episodic. And we've discussed this in the last stream. You can pretty much have a story underneath all that goes on throughout the season. Enterprise did it. DS9 did it. That's fine. But there wasn't very much in the way of episodic storytelling. It was all a vehicle to get us to the end goal. It didn't feel like there was any... The fine details weren't there. And it all felt like it was just leading to that one half an hour of finale, which is all we really got in terms of conclusion to that, the season-long story arc was just half an hour finale, in which the Enterprise D did some visually impressive yet kind of unrealistic maneuvers and things that we never saw it do. And then the rest of the episode was an epilogue.